Bernie Sanders is making a case for himself against Joe Biden.
What case would Trump make against Joe Biden? We are back with Democratic strategist Colin OHara and Axios White House reporter Elena Treen. Great to have both of you at the table. One thing that Sagar and I have been talking about is, Elena, in the Democratic primary, there are certain topics about Joe Biden that are off limits. Right. One of them is certainly Hunter Biden and Burisma and whatever happened in Ukraine, which, look, wasn't a good look for Donald Trump. But also, let's be clear, Hunter Biden sitting on this board making $50K a month with no qualifications is not a good look for Joe Biden, and is certainly something that the Trump campaign is going to be bringing up if Biden is the nominee.
Yeah. Totally. And as we all know, the Trump campaign is not afraid to play dirty, where some, I think, Democrats aren't necessarily willing to go. I mean, Joe Biden's family baggage, it almost kept him from entering the race this time. And in the fall, when I had chatted with a lot of people about when everything about Ukraine and Hunter Biden's paid work there started to surface, they were worried that that would drag him down. Now that he's having this surge, and we've seen in South Carolina and Super Tuesday, I chatted with people on the Trump campaign and people close to the president, and they say there's, by all means, if he's the nominee, we are going to ram him with these Hunter Biden attacks and make sure no one forgets all of that.
It's funny. The president was on Sean Hannity last night, and they asked him, they said, are you going to talk about this? He goes, quote, I will bring it up all the time. So he says it in his own words. It's one thing I love about the guy. He'll just tell you.
There you go. No surprises there.
Yeah, so emboldened.
I know.
He thinks that,
Here's the interesting thing, though. I mean, the problem, Colin, is that Hunter does behave in a cartoonish manner sometimes. I mean, he sat for a New York Times profile where he's sitting in a house paying $10,000 a month with a Porsche. He owes family, child support. And at the same time, I mean, my friends over at the Daily Caller, they just published this story, let's throw it up there, that Hunter Biden touted connections last year while pitching UCLA law on letting him teach a drug policy course. I mean, and in it, he's promising, I can get the former president of Colombia, I can get my father in order to appear at this. I mean, I don't think Biden has yet. I mean, every single time he tried to answer for this on the campaign trail, he basically melted down and called the reporter a liar for even bringing it up.
A lying dog face pony soldier.
A lying dog face pony soldier.
Well, look, good for Joe Biden for getting a little incensed when people attack his kids.
Sure.
Okay, this is a good thing, and he's a protective father. That's good. They do need to be ready for it because the Republican Party, Republican campaigns are adept at making non-issues issues. They are. They're great at it. I face it all the time.
I'm not sure it's a non-issue, but sure.
Well, smaller issues that I mean, whether his son got a contract is not a matter of national campaign or really of national security.
However, as a Democrat, I want to push back on that, and then I want to hear your however, because look, part of why people voted for Donald Trump, and this has not been the way that he's governed, was drain the swamp. We're sick and tired of the standard issue corruption. Maybe it's not illegal. It's like just so accepted and commonplace that people in this town are like blind to it. Like, how could that be an issue? But that's exactly why so many people are disgusted with the political establishment. So it's such a part of why 70% of people say they have a boiling anger at the political establishment in this town. So look, Democrats may not feel like it's an issue. Sort of typical politicians here may be like, everybody's kids get these kinds of jobs, no big deal. That is a major issue for the American people that we saw play out as part of why Donald Trump's in the White House.
Yeah. I understand that, and I hear what you're saying, and I am not a supporter of these kind of relationships. Let me be clear. I don't operate that way.
I know that very well. Yeah.
However, what I would say here is there's a grand irony in us attacking Hunter Biden for one contract over a year when Donald Trump's kids are flying around the world, cutting huge deals.
Sure.
And with us paying for their travel and national security.
Sure.
Like this is like I'm attacking him on that. Who's making more money?
However, Donald Trump, Elena, is not running as a values moral candidate, and Joe Biden is. Joe Biden is running as explicitly a values-oriented, which is what Hillary did. Values-oriented. Our children are watching. What kind of an image are we going to present to the world? That is his campaign. And so, people, like, that stuff doesn't really faze people when it is Donald Trump because it's so brazen and they're not surprised by it. It's part of the package that they bought. With Joe Biden, it makes him look like a hypocrite. That you're going to lecture me on morals and values, and yet your kid's cashing in at the same time. That smacks of hypocrisy.
Right. For better or for worse, you're exactly right. President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden are in two completely different, they're held to different standards. And I think that, again, with everything involving the Biden family and his son, it's an issue that Republicans are totally insensitive. Not just the White House, but people on Capitol Hill. We're seeing Senator Ron Johnson is saying he's going to try to issue a report on Hunter Biden here. A lot of people are still. A lot of Republicans are infuriated by the entire impeachment process. They are not going to let this go. And I think that if it was going to calm down with Bernie Sanders as potentially a nominee or someone else, maybe it would have went away. But now that Biden's the front runner again, it's by all means going to be on.
Back.
Let's dig into that, Elena. I want to get your insight in particular because you talk to these people. I mean, from what my conversations, there's been a sort of whiplash of they wrote Biden off. I mean, the Biden folder was starting to get dusty, and the Sanders one was starting to get bigger and all that. And then all of a sudden they have to go reach for it again. What is the White House inside the Trump campaign? What are they starting to think about what 2020 is going to look like? Because it's not what they thought a week ago. I can tell you.
Right. So it's a mix. When I talk to people within the White House or on the Trump campaign, it is mixed. There's not, if you ask everyone who's your dream candidate to run against. Some people will say Bernie Sanders. They'd love to run against an actual Democratic socialist. Some people say Biden because they think that he'll just get torn apart on a debate stage, especially given some of his, his very well-known gaffes. So it's a mixed bag. I think that Biden is definitely a very scary candidate to the president and to the campaign because of his pull in some of these key states that were integral to President Trump winning in 2016, like Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Those are all places where Biden is probably better poised to take than someone like Bernie Sanders.
And Elena, on the Hunter stuff, I mean, there's the one thing that I think is legitimate that I was arguing with Colin about, the corruption piece, I think is legitimate. I think it's an issue that should be raised in the Democratic primary. Frankly, I think it's a disservice that it's not. Then there's the other stuff. There's drug use, there's the paternity suit, there's the, the strip clubs and the baby mama and all of that, which I don't think is a legitimate campaign issue. But that doesn't mean that Donald Trump's campaign, what does that piece of the attack on Joe Biden look like based on, I mean, you've looked at some of the opposition research, like where will they go with that? It's salacious, it's tabloid fodder, and Donald Trump is not going to be afraid to go down that lane.
Does not shy away from any of that. And I think that, again, I think people in the campaign close to the president are still also holding a lot of anger about what happened in the lead up to 2016 with the Access Hollywood tape and all of that. There's by no means are they going to think that anything like that is off limits. The big difference here is that it's focused on the former vice president's son and not himself. And so I think there will be some sort of balance that they have to work out. Like, how much do we make this about Hunter Biden and how much do we try to focus on the vice president himself? And I know that's something that they're discussing.
It seems dual-pronged to me because I think it's central to the message of, like, Biden is going back to what we beat in 2016, Colin. And you alluded to this in the last panel, which is you can't run a Hillary 2.0 campaign. But at the same time, I mean, Biden's whole case is return to normalcy, which was kind of Hillary 2. If anything, it's like Hillary 3.0 or something like that, right? Like, it's like we're taking the Hillary extension of the Obama case, and then we're saying, no, this was all so terrible. Shove it all back into the box of history, and let's go back to 2012. Is that really a compelling case in order to be made whenever people voted for like fundamental change in 2016?
I think we're going to find out. And I think that you're talking about two different things. One is a message of campaign that's multi-pronged, and you're right about that. The other is a straight personality contest, and I think Joe Biden may win that straight personality contest. He's very, very likable, and we are in a society and a place in this country where we lead with that. Do I fundamentally like that person? That's why Obama won in 2012.
Yeah, totally.
Nobody likes
and Joe
Donald
Biden
Trump.
has that.
I
think some people did. I think some people
did. They were like
did.
amused by it. They were, respected him in certain ways.
Donald Trump also has something he didn't have last time. The oldest thing I learned in advertising, my first job, was different always beats better. And Hillary Clinton was marginally better. That was her argument. And Donald Trump was completely different. Joe Biden may be able to say, hey, you know that. I'm not just better, but I am different in the way he governs. And he's in a different position than he would be just looking at himself as a Hillary Clinton campaign.
I'm going to steal that different.
It always does.
It's an interesting point. I think the Biden likability thing is real and is very important and significant, but I don't know that he is the different candidate. I think Trump still has the advantages of both being the incumbent and being the different. And that's what is fearful for me in terms of wanting to get him out of the White House. I think that's a very hard thing to go up against.
Yeah.
Elena, so great to have you.
Yes.
Colin, always great
show.
to have you.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate
Thanks,
it both.
guys.
Thanks for having us.
Tomorrow on Rising, friend of the show, Harvey K, shares his thoughts on what the left's next step should be after the aftermath of Super Tuesday.
And another good friend of the show, Kyle Kalinske, is going to be back as always.
Driver.
Kyle Driver. It's in the pocket of Big Seltzer. Did
that's
you know
right.
that?
Yeah, he is.
As always, please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss any of our content. We will see you guys back here tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.